Our Swift Creek home was a cute 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story home situated in the country about 5 minutes from Walmart shopping on 1 acre of land. We lived there for 5 years. It had a nice yard with lots of flowering trees and shrubbery, a nice collection of trees, including a large magnolia tree, a eucalyptus tree, several crepe myrtles, as well as some tall oak shade trees. The grass grew very well there, and our garden was successful in that soil. It had a small front porch, but it was sufficient. There was a garage, a bit run down, but still standing. I always thought it was going to fall down. Come inside. Let me show you around. I love the old character of the home, the original panel doors with old-fashioned glass doorknobs. The dining room had an old coal the fireplace, but it was blocked up. It made for a great place to hang the Christmas stockings. My favorite feature was the fireplace. We loved starting a fire on cold winter days. The former owner added several built-in bookcases throughout the house, which was useful. Several other wood decorations in various places, such as window cornices and other decorative trims. One of my favorite rooms was the formal dining room. My table looked so nice there, and I even liked the color of the room. The neighborhood wasn't the best, and it has since run down after we left the area. The banks could have made us an offer, but as you probably know, banks are greedy. When you buy a home and you take 30 years to pay it off, do you realize that you end up paying nearly 3 times the selling cost because of compound interest? I don't know who comes up with those crazy formulas, but it certainly works in the bank's favor. We were making our mortgage payment every month, so they didn't want to give us a break. They liked that gravy train. Even after we put $50,000 of sweat equity into this home, we tried refinancing with 4 different banks to negotiate for a lower house payment and to remove the PMI. The prime mortgage insurance is there to protect the banks, but you have to pay for it, and it offers no protection for you. Go figure. We paid 3 different appraisers, and they would not increase the value of our home more than $10,000. Even after all the work we did, each bank wanted a new appraisal. They wouldn't accept the previous one that we hired on our own, where we got the best appraisal. I swear, those appraisers work for the banks, and the banks tell them what to appraise the house at when they haven't even looked at it. They set limits for the appraiser. It's a racket. We replaced all the old rotted windows, installed new front and back doors, upgraded both bathrooms with a tile finish, real tile, and installed a nice kitchen. And we did it with cash. We didn't take out another loan. We improved both bathrooms, added a large walk-in shower in the downstairs bathroom. The kitchen that I had before was really inadequate, which is probably why the sellers had a hard time selling it in the first place. The agent we used to buy the house practically did backflips to get us into that home. He actually deposited a good sum of money into our bank account temporarily to make things look good in order to get our loan approved. He later went out of business. I wonder why. Our loan changed hands, and then they raised the mortgage without our permission. We didn't sign for that. How do they get away with it? Of all the work that we did on the house, I was most proud of the kitchen. We had all new appliances, stainless steel, matching appliances. We added a glass stovetop with a vent. My previous kitchen didn't have a vent at all. We had double ovens for the first time in my life, a dishwasher, which there was no room for a dishwasher in the other kitchen, and we had a place for both a refrigerator and an upright freezer. It wasn't a big room, but we made good use of this space to make a great kitchen. We had to hire an electrician to rewire the outlets for kitchen counter height, and we had to downsize a window so the sink could fit below it. We put new flooring in the room and added a door that leads outside to the back porch. just off the driveway where we parked the cars. The kitchen cabinets were high-end. I didn't go for the low-end, cheaper construction where only the front looks good and the rest of it's sort of shabby. Nope. These cabinets were full cabinets built with 3/4-inch plywood construction. At the time, I was thinking they would be permanent. My final kitchen. So we went all out, including crown molding to finish it off. The kitchen alone cost us $20,000, and we paid for it with cash money. I was fully expecting this was going to be our permanent home. I even had plans drawn up in my sketchbook of expanding the home and adding like an entertainment room and just a little bit more space. I had been watching the housing market for several years. This was all before the 2008 housing crash. I saw how home prices kept rising, so my thought was, it's a good investment to invest in your home because you will get more back out of it. The home we bought and sold before this house, we earned a profit of $24,000, so it seemed like a good idea at the time. The room that we converted into a kitchen, it used to be a den. We had to remove the built-in bookshelves that the previous owner had put there. We had to peel wallpaper and just tear the room down to its basic structure. And then we had to have the electrical done and plumbing. My husband had to plumb into the existing sewer line. So there was a lot involved in just preparing the space to be a kitchen. But turning that room into a kitchen with access to the back porch with a back door was a very smart improvement for the house. The house had been built piece by piece, and the kitchen has been moved twice. So the plumbing under the house is a confusing mess. At first, it was 2 rooms with a small kitchenette and an outhouse. Then they added 2 more rooms and later an addition to the back of the house and 2 upstairs bedrooms. But before he built the house, they actually lived in the garage back in the 1940s. The previous kitchen became a closet and a bathroom. How do I know the story of the house? I met the granddaughter of the man who built the home. She told me that he built the house for his wife. At one time, every room in the house was painted a shade of pink, including the wood trim. We actually found pipes in the ground that went from the house to 2 cans buried upright in the ground, which may have been the original septic or water drainage for the first kitchen sink. I feel that when a person builds a house, if they cannot build the whole thing at once due to finances, they should at least have a plan to make those additions in such a way that it does not look like an addition here and an addition there. A lot of houses in the South are put together that way, and some of them are successful, but many of them really look a mess. The builder of this home did a good job. He made the exterior of the home look good, and it was a cute house. But the layout inside was a bit strange. The original back door would enter my daughter's bedroom. You would have to walk through the half bath to get to the dining room. You could literally walk in a complete circle from my daughter's bedroom to the master bedroom, through the living room, through the dining room, to the back to the half bath, back into my daughter's bedroom. And since they put the refrigerator inside what would have been the back door that would lead into the kitchen, you had to walk all the way around just to get to the kitchen. Mice used to get into the house under the fridge, and a cold draft in the wintertime would come in that way too, because the back porch is not heated. We almost always entered the home from the back porch because that's where we parked the vehicles. We later closed up that space when the room was converted into a den computer room, and my tiny art studio on the opposite side of the room, where the main part of the kitchen used to be. The shelf space I had used as a kitchen pantry became art storage. We did leave the one upper cabinet that was originally there, since it was tucked around the corner of the fireplace. When we remodeled the home, the back door entered directly into the kitchen, which was much more convenient and practical. A friend of ours took out the window and installed the door. We finished off the inside around the door and later added a storm door. My boys installed the hardware for the door. My husband built the door threshold. My husband did all the plumbing. I had the stove vent hood built, adding the molding that I picked out for it, and painted it, added the glaze to match the kitchen cabinets. We put a lot of sweat equity into that home and made it better. In fact, every place that I have ever lived, we improved it from how we found it. You're probably wondering, why am I speaking of the house in past tense terms? Well, because we don't live there anymore. Long story short, we walked away from that house, surrendering it to the lender in lieu of deed. It wasn't a bankruptcy, just a surrender. I was so mad at the racket the banks have going, and there's so much more to that story, which I will save for another time. We decided it was far more important to have food on our table and gas in our tank than to struggle to keep paying that high mortgage. We had 6 children to feed, and 5 of them are boys, and that meant our biggest bill every month was groceries. So, before we ever missed a single payment, we sought for another home, one that we could easily afford without the stress and struggle. After having the go-around with the banks, who gave us such hope, saying they would work with us, to only let us down in the end, I was so frustrated. Once we found a place to call home, after doing some initial cleanup and painting, we began moving all of our things into the next home. I told my husband, we are taking that new kitchen with us. So we did. We invested $20,000 to have it installed there. It belonged to us. The banks just wanted to take advantage of us, and they wouldn't help us. So I took my kitchen with me, including the kitchen sink. We only left the electrical and the plumbing. If I could have taken the windows, I might have done that too. Before we missed a single payment, we were gone. The kitchen too. We installed that kitchen into our current home. My new kitchen space is much larger, so I had to purchase a few extra cabinets to make it all fit. And of course, we had to have a brand new countertop installed in our new kitchen. That counter alone cost $3,000. And we paid cash for it. We do everything with cash, trying to stay out of debt, so sometimes it takes us a while to get things done because we have to save up the money for the next project. So for a good while, we had temporary countertops until we could get everything in place, which required hiring another electrician, wire the double ovens, and add outlets and new lights. And we had to relocate the sink, and my husband had to get under the house and do the plumbing for that. Now, I have the largest and the best kitchen I have ever had in my entire life. I don't feel the least bit sorry about removing the kitchen from that other house. In the 5 years we were making payments on that house, we paid the bank $85,000, and our mortgage debt only dropped by $5,000. Tell me that is not a ripoff? The bank did not lose a single dime on that house, so I don't feel guilty at all. They still got the upgraded bathrooms. We couldn't take those without destroying the tile. And do you know what? They sold that house for only $49,000 after we left. If they had just made a reasonable deal with us, they would have done better. That house sits empty to this day. The new owners aren't doing anything with it. They put some stuff in there, and it just kind of looks like storage, but they're not living in it. The trees and the plants around it are beginning to overtake the house. Vines are growing up the side of the house and creeping into the attic space. The siding is falling off. New trees are sprouting up all over the place, and the yard is turning into a wasteland. The chimney is falling apart. Vandals have broken out 2 of the windows. We spent $10,000 on those double-insulated argon gas windows. What a shame. I hate it. How when vandals see an abandoned building and they think they have a right to bust out the windows. We replaced this back door twice before because of vandals. I am glad to be out of that neighborhood. We were robbed 3 times while living there, and because it was the nicest house in that area, we would often get strange people showing up in our yard asking for money or wanting to sell us a set of bed covers. Seriously? That really did happen. They just figured, oh, they got money. The home of our original chicken coop. And through that door, which is now only partially there, was the chicken pen. I'm surprised that the place is still standing, but it won't for long because the tree is destroying it. Look, there's branches and vines. Wow, there's a vine growing in here. The vines are wrapping themselves around. And the vines were just...
They're trying to get out up there.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to grow up to get out. In the meantime, I'm enjoying my grand showroom-like kitchen and living happily ever after. When we moved into this place, I hated the kitchen. Oh, it was so ugly. Here are some photos when the previous owner lived in it. It was brown, dark, and so ugly. And that hideous wallboard. Whoever designed this kitchen didn't know anything about design or good use of space. The tall shelf sitting on the end of the island was disgusting. I was almost embarrassed about it. If I was video recording anything, I would make sure it was very close shots. I would never take photos in the room, so no one could see my ugly kitchen. It had the worst, odd-shaped, large kitchen island you ever saw. It was too big. It was odd-shaped. It was cumbersome with a sink in the middle of the room. Nothing about the room had any attraction. My first task to transform the room was to paint the large flowery wallboard so that I could even stand to be in the space. As we were able, we transformed the place. I measured and mapped out my current kitchen space, calculating how the cabinets would fit. We needed to remove the pantry closet first to make space. My design would be much more efficient. After we removed structures from their original location, we did have to do some wall repairs, mudding, sanding, painting. We worked a section at a time. We obviously had to have a makeshift countertop, as the final countertop could not be installed until everything was in its proper place. Two of the last items to put in would be the sink and the glass stovetop, and that could not even be tackled until the very end. So I was stuck with the center island, which housed the dishwasher and the sink. We had to continue to use the cook stove until we could get an electrician to wire the oven, but we could not have that done until the countertop was in. In our previous home, Lowe's installed the cabinets while we watched the process. You can learn by watching. Things to note. It is important for you to know 3 measurements. You need to know the height of your cabinets, about where your countertop is going to be, and how much workspace you want between the countertop and the bottom of the upper cabinets so that you don't bump your head, so that you have space to put appliances and things. It's also advisable to know the measurement of the highest cabinet, such as a food pantry, so that you can line everything up right. You also need to know where the studs in the wall are. Find them, mark them, so that you know where to place your screws to hold your upper cabinets in place. When you get that line, the bottom line of the top cabinet, mark, measure, mark, and draw a line. And make sure that line is level. One more tip. For corner cabinets, make sure that you check both sides and that your line is level both ways. If that corner cabinet is off even just a little bit, the rest of your cabinets will either go downhill or uphill. I installed my previous stove vent, connecting it to the existing fan that was in this house. I had to do a little wiring to make the proper connections, but it works. I think I recorded that video, but I think it's on an old laptop that I can't seem to get into anymore, so I don't have that footage. You might notice that the vent is not centered over the stove. That's because we couldn't put the glass top stove in place yet. Later, we shifted things around to line up the glass stovetop directly under the vent. The happiest day for me was seeing that big, ugly island removed from the center of the room. That really opened up the space. We made a hole in the floor to make it easier for my husband to climb down and relocate all the plumbing. One more holdup was the kitchen sink. The windows in the home were too large, so once again, we needed to downsize the window in order to have the sink moved to the wall. I think most everyone agrees you must have a window at your kitchen sink. I ended up downsizing all the windows in the rest of the house because I just felt that there were too many windows, especially on the front of the house. I feel much more private and secure with less window exposure. Plus, with smaller windows, you don't need curtains. Just a valance will do. We're a cat family, and curtains are just cat hair collectors. So valances are the best. So far the cats haven't even touched the valances. With every new window we put in, we install an extended shelf so that the cats have a nice place to sit. They love watching the birds or just recharging themselves in the sunlight, so it seems. We also removed one window entirely from the kitchen so that we could house both the refrigerator and the upright freezer side by side in one single built-in unit. That was always my plan, but couldn't be done until the skylight was removed, because you can't have a skylight over top of a tall cabinet. It would just look strange. It's kind of like dominoes. You have to do this thing before you can get to the next thing. That's part of the struggle. Plus, with every project, even when you're doing it yourself, there are always expenses involved because you may need specific materials or specific tools. The hardest part about any home remodeling is dealing with the mess while also living in the space. And a kitchen is a pretty important room. Things got shuffled around quite a bit over the whole process. When we got everything in place and the extra new cabinets that I purchased, I had about 6 inches left over after my husband got the plumbing in for the location of the sink cabinet. It seemed about the right size for a pull-out spice rack or storage rack. I priced one at Lowe's, but they wanted $600 for the unit. No way. Then my son found the inner parts of pull-out shelf from a website, I think it's called House, spelled with a Z, not a S, for just $100. He said that he could build the rest of the cabinet and make the door front. Finally, the day came when the countertop was ordered, measured, template made, paid for, and the installer was scheduled to come. So we removed all of our makeshift temporary countertops, which meant we also had no working stove, nor a kitchen sink for a short period of time, but the dishwasher was hooked up and running. I did purchase an Ikea kitchen island, which was exactly the size I wanted. It has shelf space on the cooking side of the kitchen to keep all of our cast iron pans handy, and also storage for our cat food. The other side can be extra seating for when we have family visit. I have a good 3 feet of working space all the way around the island, and if I ever need to move it, I could do that too. I said I would never live in a trailer. Don't ever say never. We bought a double-wide modular home, and we paid it off in 7 years. We bought it under a rent-to-own agreement, and we established how much we wanted to pay each month, which was half of what we had been paying on the other house. We could have had a smaller payment, but we were adamant about paying it off as soon as possible. We are now debt-free and living comfortably without the stress. What we learned from that other house was what a burden a home mortgage was when your husband loses his job. It's like a chain around your neck. You know what mortgage means, don't you? Mort means death. Gage means a pledge. So when you sign a mortgage agreement, you're pledging yourself to death. A mortgage can suck the life out of you. It's another form of highway robbery, probably invented by the central banking system to enrich themselves over our dead bodies. As the economic news grows worse over time, we are so happy about our decision to unload our debt and remain that way. We are working on removing the trailer look from our home. When I get done with it, you will never know that it's a mobile home. I may not live in a mansion in this life, but I can make any place a nice place to be. A place that we're proud to call home. Having a roof over your head, a place to call home, is everyone's basic need. As the economic news grows worse over time, we are so happy about our decision to unload our debt and remain that way. A couple years ago, my husband was out of work for 6 months, and we survived just fine. It would have been a different story if we were still paying a high mortgage. We are currently still working on removing the trailer look from our home. When I get done with it, you will never know that it's a mobile home. I may not live in a mansion in this life, but I can make any place a nice place to be, a place that I can be proud of, a place to call home. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. But for here and now, I'm content to live humbly and comfortably without the stresses or worries about affording the mortgage. As long as I pay my yearly taxes, I'm home free for another year. I could say something about that, but I won't. If you're interested in our home journey, please subscribe, comment, and like to help boost my channel, since YouTube seems to work against me because they don't like my political viewpoint, even though I don't hardly get into it on this platform. Thanks for watching.